Hello. I often imagine myself 3 to 5 years in the future, and in my mind's eye describing both where I want to be in my life, my relationship with God, my ministry in Ringwood Benefice, but also I imagine myself in 3 to 5 years' time looking back and describing what the present was like. The second part might sound a bit odd because the future is purely a construct. It doesn't yet exist. And though the actions of society in the present will no doubt have an impact on the future, it has yet to happen. So it might seem a bit strange for me to talk about looking at the present from an imaginary point in the future, but I find it really helpful. And I think that the reason is that we're immersed in our present challenges, troubles, relationships, roles. In reality, we don't have many opportunities in the present to see the whole of our life. I don't have a drone, but I have friends who do. And when they post their video footage on social media, I'm always amazed by what the drone shows that I hadn't previously seen. And more than that, the new perspective it offers on familiar buildings and landscapes. So maybe because I don't have a drone, I like to imagine myself at a future point, looking back and describing my present. One of my favourite journeys in the Old Testament of the Bible is the story of the people of Israel being led by Moses, though ultimately God, from slavery in Egypt to freedom in the land that God had promised them. In the intervening period, though, there was a 40-year journey through the desert. To go off on a slight tangent, one of the things that impresses me the most about this decades-long journey is Moses. It was his ability to hold on to a vision for 40 years in the barrenness of the desert. But there's also something almost analogous to our current challenges. Now, don't get me wrong, the people of Israel were in the desert for 4 decades before they could enter and settle in the promised land. We've been in lockdown for over 10 weeks. But there is that shared sense, isn't there, of being in transition between the old and the new and having to work out both. How to live well, looking after our bodies and mental health in the waiting, but also working out what coming off furlough, kids going back to school or childcare, etc., will be like. And it's so often the uncertainty and the unknown which drive us crazy. But it was just like that for the Israelites. At one point they'd run out of food, and being that they were in the barrenness of the desert, panic set in. So they went to Moses, their leader, and complained. Now here's where it gets interesting. Moses didn't have any answers. He couldn't just conjure up stores of food. Instead, in the uncertainty of the situation, he gave the uncertainty over to God. And the next morning, the Israelites woke up to discover food on the ground. How many people in our nation during lockdown have had the uncertainty of where their food will come from? And then someone's referred them to a food bank and they found a good supply of food. I think the journey of this group of people, of this group of normal people, reveals the hope we can find, that by giving our anxieties over to God, we invite the God of all time and space to work in our present. Today, you might wish to pause, take a breath, identify what concerns you, and try in prayer handing that concern to God.